She wasn't supposed to come home until Friday, but the doctors said she was doing better. She had just finished another round of chemo. Her body was tired, sore, and weak. Still, she felt relieved to leave the hospital a little early. All she wanted was to rest in her own bed and maybe take a long, quiet shower. The bruise from her IV was still fresh on her arm as she stepped through the front door, carrying her small hospital bag. Something felt off the moment she walked in. There were 2 coffee cups in the sink, even though she had been away all week. Then she heard it, a woman's laugh, light and casual. The sound came from the bedroom. She froze. Her heart began to pound. Slowly, she walked down the hallway. She tried to tell herself she was imagining things, that maybe the TV was on, or maybe someone had come over to help. But deep down, she already knew. She opened the bedroom door and saw a woman sitting on the bed, wearing her robe. The woman was laughing at something her husband had said. He stood next to the bed, acting like everything was normal. His face showed a flicker of surprise, then quickly shifted into a fake smile, as if nothing unusual had happened. There were no apologies, no shame. Instead, he spoke gently, almost too calmly, telling her she must be confused. He said the chemo could mess with memories, that she was probably tired and imagining things. She stood there, shaking, unable to respond. The other woman didn't say a word, just sat with a quiet, smug expression. She didn't fight back. She didn't scream. Instead, she turned and walked to the guest room, closed the door, and began to think. She knew she wasn't crazy. Something cruel and wrong was happening, and she needed to be smart. From that moment, she began watching and taking notes. She kept records of what she saw and heard. She took photos when she could, saved receipts, copied messages, and backed up files. She didn't know yet what she would do, but she knew she had to be ready. Day by day, it got worse. The woman was always around, moving freely through the house. She wore her clothes, used her things, drank from her favorite coffee mug, and then came the moment that broke her. She walked into the bathroom and saw 2 toothbrushes, hers, and one that wasn't hers, sitting side by side in the holder. That was the moment something inside her shifted. The sadness began to fade. The hurt turned into quiet determination. She didn't know exactly how it would end, but she knew one thing for sure. She wouldn't be the one to walk away broken. She was still fighting for her life when he began acting like she was already gone. The doctors had not given up, and neither had she. Her body was weak from the treatments, but her mind was clear. She was holding on, hoping to get better. But while she was resting in the hospital, her husband was telling a different story. He told friends that she might not survive. He went to church and asked people to pray for her, saying the end was near. He told her own family to prepare for the worst. He cried in front of everyone, acting like a heartbroken husband. People brought him food, offered support, and told him how strong he was for staying by her side. They had no idea what was really happening. Behind closed doors, he was not sad. He was planning for a future without her. He started spending money from her life insurance, money she didn't even know had been touched. He bought expensive things and gave gifts to another woman. That woman, she later learned, was not just a friend. The 2 of them had been together for a while. While she lay in her hospital bed, weak from chemo, he played the part of the loving husband. He brought her flowers and sat by her side when people were around. But when he thought she was asleep, he would step out to take phone calls and send texts. He didn't know she sometimes stayed awake, listening quietly. One night, something happened that made everything clear. She had been moved back home for a few days to rest. Her energy was low, but she couldn't sleep. She lay still in the dark and heard him in the other room. His voice was soft at first. Then she realized he was speaking out loud, as if practicing something. She listened closely. He was reading from a paper. It took her a moment to understand, but then she heard the words clearly. He was practicing a eulogy. He was pretending to speak at her funeral. He said things like, she was brave, and she fought so hard. Her heart began to race. She couldn't believe it. She was still alive, still breathing in the next room, and he was already preparing to say goodbye. She didn't move. She didn't say a word. She just listened, and when he finally stopped and went to bed, she stayed awake. She stared at the ceiling and knew everything had changed. He didn't believe she would make it. Maybe he didn't want her to. That night, she stopped thinking of him as her husband. She stopped trusting his words or his touch. From that moment on, she began to protect herself in silence. She didn't let him know she had heard, but she would never forget. While she was still sick and going through treatment, The other woman started acting like the wife didn't exist. The mistress wore the wife's clothes and posted pictures online, smiling and posing in the very outfits the wife used to wear. At first, it didn't seem real, but then people started noticing. Some of the wife's friends saw the photos and asked questions. The husband told them not to worry, saying the wife had given her things away. Some friends believed him. Others started ignoring the wife completely. They didn't call or visit anymore. When she reached out, they said they were busy or didn't reply at all. The mistress was quietly turning people against her, spreading lies behind her back. She told stories that made the wife seem cold, angry, or confused. Some of the wife's oldest friends stopped talking to her, and she didn't understand why, until one friend showed her the truth. One day, a friend sent her screenshots from a private group chat. In those messages, the mistress called herself the future Mrs. She bragged about living in the wife's house and said the wife wouldn't be around much longer. She even joked about how easy it was to take over someone's life. The wife felt heartbroken, but she didn't show it. She didn't yell or fight. Instead, she began saving everything: photos, messages, voice recordings, and emails. She made copies of everything she found, keeping them hidden in a folder only she could access. She didn't know what she would do with the evidence yet, but she knew it would matter someday. As time went on, her health got worse. She lost more weight, needed more rest, and went back to the hospital again. The husband rarely visited unless other people were watching, but she kept fighting, even when she was scared and alone. Then slowly, things started to change. Her body began to heal. She started eating more and walking again. Her strength came back little by little. She didn't tell anyone just how much stronger she felt. She kept quiet, watching and waiting. She had lost her friends, her trust, and nearly her life, but she hadn't lost herself, and she wasn't done yet. She was very sick and weak, lying in a hospital bed. She couldn't speak, and her body didn't move much. The doctors said she had reached a dangerous point. One night something went wrong. Her heart rate dropped, and her breathing slowed. Alarms went off, and nurses rushed in. The doctors asked her husband what to do. Should they try to save her if her heart stopped? Her husband said no. He told the doctors not to do anything. He said she wouldn't want to suffer, that it was time to let go. He looked calm and serious, acting like he knew what was best for her. The medical team listened at first because he was her husband, but one nurse had doubts. She had cared for the woman many times and remembered seeing a different name on the medical file. The woman had chosen someone else to make medical decisions if she couldn't, her sister, not her husband. The nurse quickly called the sister. When the sister heard what was happening, she rushed to the hospital and shouted for the doctors to help. She said, "Save her. Do everything you can." The doctors followed the sister's orders, not the husband's. They worked hard, and after a long night, the woman survived. She woke up slowly, confused and in pain, but she remembered enough. She knew something had happened. The doctors and nurses told her the truth later. Her husband had tried to stop them from helping her. If the nurse hadn't checked the file, she might not be alive. That changed everything. She began to see things clearly. Her husband had been acting strange for months, distant, cold, and always busy. Now she understood why. He didn't expect her to make it. Maybe he didn't want her to. Her sister stayed by her side every day after that. Other family members came too. They asked questions and started to see what the husband had been doing. He tried to pretend everything was fine, but the truth was out. The woman didn't cry. She felt pain, yes, but she also felt strong. Someone had tried to give up on her, but others had not. A nurse's choice saved her life. Her sister's voice gave her another chance. She still had a long way to go. Her body was weak, and the treatments would continue. But now, she was not alone. Her family believed her. They saw the truth, and deep inside, she made a silent promise to herself. She would recover, and she would make sure this never happened again. Machines beeped softly around her. Tubes were connected to her arms, and nurses checked her every few hours. Her body was still, her eyes closed, but she was alive. No one knew if she would wake up, but her heart kept beating. While she lay in that silent room, something unthinkable was happening. At home, her husband threw a party. There were balloons, drinks, and loud laughter. Music played as people raised glasses and smiled. He told guests it was time for a new chapter. The mistress stood beside him, wearing a bright dress and a wide grin. They called it a celebration of new beginnings. Photos were taken. pictures of champagne glasses clinking, people dancing, and the mistress blowing kisses to the camera. One selfie showed her with her arm around the husband. The caption read, "Out with the old." Friends commented with heart emojis and cheering words. No one questioned it. No one asked about the woman they were all pretending no longer existed. One nurse, however, saw through the lies. She had been caring for the woman for days and had seen the pain in her face, even in sleep. The nurse noticed how little the husband showed up. He never asked about progress, never stayed long, and always looked bored. When whispers about the party reached the staff, the nurse felt something wasn't right. Quietly, she began saving the posts and pictures. She found screenshots, comments, and even a video clip. She put everything onto a small flash drive and kept it hidden. She waited, hoping there would be a chance to share the truth. When the woman slowly woke up, confused and weak, the nurse stayed close. Once she could sit up and understand words, the nurse visited her during a quiet moment. Without saying much, she placed the flash drive in her hand and said, "You need to see this when you're ready." Later, the woman opened the files. Her hands shook as the photos appeared on the screen. She saw balloons that said, "Fresh start," and her husband with his arm around another woman. There were smiles, drinks, and the words, "Finally free." She didn't cry right away. She just stared. They had celebrated her death while she was still breathing. But now she was awake, and the truth was finally in her hands. She couldn't move her body, and her eyes stayed shut, but her mind was still awake. The doctors said she was in a coma. People spoke around her as if she couldn't hear, but she could. Every sound came to her slowly, like voices underwater. Some days were quiet, and some were filled with nurses and beeping machines. But one day she heard something she would never forget. Her husband came into the room. He thought she was asleep, maybe even already gone in his mind. He didn't speak gently or kindly. He sighed loudly, as if he was tired of waiting. Then he pulled out his phone and started talking to someone. His voice was clear and calm. "I've already talked to the realtor," he said. "We can put the house on the market next month." She lay still, her heart beating faster. He was planning to sell their home. He kept talking. "Yeah, I'll start clearing her stuff out soon. No reason to keep all that junk." He was calling her things junk. Her books, her clothes, her favorite chair by the window. All the little parts of her life meant nothing to him now. Then another voice entered the room. It was the mistress. She laughed and said, "Once this is over, I'm going to turn your bedroom into my office." Finally, a space with good light. Their bedroom, her bedroom, the one she had decorated, filled with soft pillows and photos from their wedding. Now it was just a place the other woman wanted to use for work. The woman in the bed couldn't cry, couldn't speak, but inside, something changed. Before that moment, she had been weak and unsure. Now she felt something sharp, something clear. They thought she was finished. They had already started planning a life without her. They were making space for themselves while she still breathed. She made a quiet promise to herself that day. If she ever woke up, if her body ever let her move again, she would not forget this. She would not tell them she had heard. She would stay quiet, stay still, and let them believe she was helpless. But inside, she would begin planning. She would remember every word, every laugh, every cold plan they made. One day, when the time was right, she would get her strength back. And when she did, they wouldn't see it coming. They thought she was broken, but she was waiting. When she finally woke up, everything felt heavy. Her body was slow to move, and her voice came out soft. People around her spoke gently, thinking she didn't remember anything. But she remembered it all, the lies, the betrayal, and how her husband had given up on her. She looked at him and gave a small smile. She told him she understood. She said maybe stress had caused him to act the way he did. He looked surprised at first, then pleased. He thought she had forgiven him. He believed she was no longer a threat. She let him think that. She acted tired and quiet. She told him she didn't want to argue. He started relaxing. He began talking openly in front of her, thinking she didn't care anymore. Sometimes he left his phone unlocked, or let the mistress come too close. They believed she had given up, but she hadn't. One evening, she asked a nurse to help her send an email. Slowly and carefully, she began putting her plan into place. She contacted a lawyer and changed her will. She made sure her husband would get nothing if anything happened to her again. She told the lawyer to protect her money, her house, and her name. She also handed over all the photos, screenshots, and files she had saved before. Then, She reached out to a local journalist, someone who wrote stories about strong survivors. She gave her just enough to raise interest, but held back the full truth. She wanted the timing to be right. She also contacted someone on the hospital board, a kind woman she had once spoken to during treatment. They arranged a private meeting. Each day, she let her husband think he was safe. She smiled, thanked him for small things, and never let him see what she was doing. He thought she was healing slowly and letting the past go, but her mind was sharp and her heart was steady. She wasn't planning revenge with anger. She was planning justice with care. Her plan was quiet. It moved slowly, step by step. While he believed she was finished, she was building her way back, not with loud words, but with smart choices, not with pain, but with patience. He had no idea she was already preparing everything, and soon he would learn the truth the hard way. After everything she had been through, pain, betrayal, and a long fight to survive, she wanted to do something meaningful. Her illness had nearly taken her life. During that time, her husband had lied, cheated, and planned for a future without her, but she had lived. She had fought back, taken him to court, and won. The court gave her a large settlement. She also received money from a family inheritance. People asked her what she would do with it. They thought she might travel or buy a new house, but she had other plans. The hospital where she had received treatment had become a part of her story. The nurses had cared for her with kindness. The doctors had tried everything to save her. She remembered the long nights, the quiet moments, and the hope she felt every time someone smiled at her and said, "You're getting better." She met with the hospital board and told them she wanted to give them everything, the full settlement and her inheritance. They were shocked at first. No one had expected such a large gift. Then she added one simple request. She didn't want a statue or a speech. She only wanted the new cancer wing, which was already being built, to carry her name, not just for 1 year, or as a small plaque on the wall. She wanted her name on the front of the building, carved in stone, where no one could erase it. Forever. The hospital agreed, without question. Her story had touched many people. Her gift would help hundreds of patients in the future. A date was set for the opening. The press was invited. Donors and guests came to celebrate the new wing. Her husband had no idea what she had done. He hadn't spoken to her since the court ruling, but when he saw news of the event online, he decided to show up. Maybe he thought he could get attention or act like he was part of the story. As the cameras rolled, the hospital director gave a short speech. Then they pulled back a curtain to show the name on the building. There it was, her full name in large, shining letters. The Emily Carter Cancer Center. The crowd clapped. People smiled and took photos. Her husband stood frozen. He hadn't expected this. On live TV, he watched as his former wife stood in front of the crowd, calm and proud, surrounded by people who respected her. She didn't look his way. She had already moved on. Her story was no longer about him. It was about strength, survival, and leaving a mark that would never fade. The day of the hospital wing opening had finally arrived. Everyone was excited. The building was beautiful, with flowers, banners, and cameras all around. Doctors, nurses, reporters, and donors gathered to celebrate the new cancer wing. It was a big moment for the hospital, and especially for the woman who had made it all possible. Emily Carter had given everything to help make this wing a reality. Her kindness and strength had touched many people, but one person didn't come to honor her. He came for attention. Her husband, the same man who had betrayed her during her sickness, arrived at the event in a black tuxedo. He walked around shaking hands and smiling for the cameras. He told people how proud he was of his late wife. He acted like a grieving man who had lost the love of his life. Reporters asked questions, and he gave fake emotional answers. He looked like he belonged, until the moment everything changed. As the hospital director stood at the podium and spoke about the woman who inspired the new wing, the crowd listened quietly. Then he said, "And now, let us welcome the woman herself, Emily Carter." Gasps filled the air as Emily walked out from behind the curtain. She was alive. She looked calm, strong, and proud. The crowd stood up and clapped. The cameras quickly turned to her. Her husband's smile dropped. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Emily walked straight to him with papers in her hand. She looked him in the eye and gave him a small nod. Then she handed him the divorce documents, in front of everyone. The cameras caught the moment. People whispered and stared. Her husband froze, speechless. His fake story had fallen apart right on live TV. His face turned red. Reporters rushed forward with more questions. He couldn't answer. Just then, the woman he had brought with him, the same one he had moved in during Emily's treatment, backed away from the crowd. She looked around nervously, then turned and quickly left the event without saying a word. Her plan had failed too. Emily didn't say anything more. She turned and walked to the stage. The hospital director welcomed her, and the crowd cheered again. She stood in front of the building with her name on it, the Emily Carter Cancer Center. The past was behind her. She had taken back her life, her name, and her story. Now, everyone knew the truth. Everything changed after the opening of the new cancer wing. The truth was out. People saw what really happened. Her husband had lied, cheated, and pretended to be someone he was not. Now, there was no way to hide it. His money was gone. The court froze his accounts during the divorce. The house he once shared with her was sold. His name was removed from every donation list. Even the hospital took down his picture from the donor wall. No one wanted to be linked to him anymore. The woman he left his wife for didn't stay. When the money and attention disappeared, she did too. One day, she packed her things and vanished. He was left alone, without love, without respect, and without a future. But Emily Carter's life was just beginning again. She moved into a small home of her own, quiet and peaceful. She joined local support groups and made new friends who understood her journey. She started helping other cancer patients by sharing her story. People listened. Her voice gave others hope. She also began working with the hospital, visiting patients and speaking at events. Staff members respected her. Families thanked her. Children smiled when they saw her. She no longer felt like someone who had been left behind. She was someone who had survived, healed, and risen above it all. One afternoon, she walked through the cancer wing that carried her name. The halls were clean and bright. Nurses moved gently from room to room. In one corner, a little girl sat in a chair, wearing a scarf and holding a toy. The girl looked up at Emily and asked, "Who is the lady this building is named after?" Emily smiled, warm and calm. She knelt beside her and said, "That's me." The girl's eyes lit up. "Really?" Emily nodded. "Really? And you're going to get better here, just like I did." The girl hugged her toy close and smiled. Emily stood up and looked at the wall again. The Emily Carter Cancer Center. Her name was carved in stone, not because she was famous or rich, but because she never gave up. She had lost many things, but in the end, she found something greater: peace, purpose, and a place where her name would shine forever. Do you think Emily did the right thing by walking away and building a new life on her own? Or should she have tried to forgive and fix things with her husband? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.